CBS finally canceled their $40 million therapy session.
Cancel culture has gone too far.
They're trying to silence people, but that won't work.
The smug millionaire loses his desk and fake skyline, and it's the death of democracy.
I was impressed when he took on his parent company, Paramount.
How long before late night TV, as we know it, ceases to exist?
Late night television is dead, dead, dead. That's what many are saying. Stephen Colbert recently announced the end of his Late Show, and some claim he's just the first domino to fall.
Before we start the show, I want to let you know something that I found out just last night. Next year will be our last season. The network will be ending The Late Show in May.
CBS announced that it's canceling The Late Show after a 3-decade run, citing financial issues at the network.
Now, it's unclear why the show is canceled, but it comes after Colbert spoke out against his parent company, Paramount's $16 million settlement with Trump over the editing of a 60 Minutes interview.
If Terrible Optics could talk, they'd give an opening monologue on this one.
So the Democrats are crying conspiracy after CBS flushed liberal hack Stephen Colbert and The Late Show down the comedy toilet.
Colbert has no talent. I mean, I could take anybody here. I could go outside on the beautiful streets and pick up a couple of people that do just as well or better. They get higher ratings than he did. He's got no talent.
Confused as to why the President of the United States is embroiled in a spat with a late-night talk show host? It all began with a lawsuit.
Paramount paying $16 million to Donald Trump to settle a lawsuit over a 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris.
He alleged in an interview last year that his former rival, Kamala Harris, did this interview on CBS's 60 Minutes and that it was deceptively edited in a way that helped her and hurt him.
CBS is responding to claims that the network engaged in deceitful editing practices when it aired 2 different answers to the same question in its interview with Vice President Kamala Harris.
They had a question and there was a 2-sentence answer. So in one instance, they played the first sentence and then they played the second sentence. And let me ask you, why is it, how is it that we even know about this great deception? It's because CBS released it. Right. They played one part on Face the Nation and one part on 60 Minutes. This is not a deception. It might be selective editing, which is known as editing.
The only reason any of this happened is because President Trump was willing to go and pick a fight that few Republicans ever want to get into. And he has fought with the media every step of the way. He's not afraid of it. And this was the result of it.
The interview with presidential candidate and then Vice President Kamala Harris, which aired in October 2024 on 60 Minutes, a CBS News program, was scrutinized for its editing. Whether the editing was done in good or bad faith is what the talking heads in the media couldn't seem to agree on. Here's what Fox News had to say.
2 weeks after Kamala Harris sat down with 60 Minutes, the network is finally responding to these allegations that they edited her interview to make her look better. CBS is now saying that's not true. They edited the interview for time. So what's your reaction to that?
Wow, it took 14 days to put out that statement, huh, Carly? Todd, I mean, thanks for having me, by the way. This statement 60 Minutes issued is absolutely meaningless. The only resolution here is for the program to release the full transcript, release the hounds, release the interview in its entirety from start to finish. But the network won't do that. You know why they won't do that? 2 reasons. One, the people that run that network want Kamala Harris to win and Donald Trump to lose. This ain't about journalism, it's about activism. And 2, they know by releasing the transcript or the unedited video, it will likely show that on multiple occasions, this interview cut the guts out of the various word salad the vice president again served up.
They did end up releasing the full transcript, by the way. Even before the settlement, 60 Minutes released the full video. Now, let's take a look at the alleged deceptive edit.
The network was caught deceptively editing this answer. Watch.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening. The Wall Street Journal said that that your administration has repeatedly been blindsided by Netanyahu. And in fact, he has rebuffed just about all of your administration's entreaties.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region. And we're not going to stop doing that. We are not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
They certainly shortened the question and answer, but did they fundamentally alter its meaning? 60 Minutes' Steve Croft doesn't think so.
I should point out that the soundbite in the exchange, neither the front half or the second half answered the question. But Trump thought the second half was better than the first half, and 60 Minutes was deliberately trying to make him lose the election by manipulating the news.
They did air the first part that he thought made her look bad in the morning, and then they aired the second part in the evening, and then they made the whole thing available.
Yeah, most people couldn't tell the difference.
Jon Stewart pointed out that both sides have been caught doing the same thing, but wondered why it was only a problem when the liberal press did it.
I'm going to show you something.
Okay, go right ahead.
And this is shock. You're going to be shocked by this.
Okay.
This is from, it's an organization called Fox News. One of their hosts asked a gentleman by the name of Donald Trump, I want you to watch, this is how it aired on their morning show. Please take a look.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
Attorney General, what are you, I mean, we talked about.
So that's how it aired. Yes. Simple question. Would you declassify 9/11? Yes. Kennedy? Yes. Epstein? Yes. And then the Secretary of Defense jumped in.
Well, he did actually
said,
jump.
Sir, please get me off this couch. I want to show you the larger context of that interview that aired later. Take a look.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least
Do you think that would restore trust?
Now, that seems up.
Yes. That would never happen on 60 Minutes.
No, but I would like to know why the 60 Minutes edit was worthy of a $16 million acquiescence of what is considered the Tiffany News gold standard network for Paramount of news, where very clearly Fox just did what seems to me to be a more egregious edit.
Yes.
So explain to me what was going through the mind of Paramount when they said, oh yeah, we screwed up, here's your money. Why not? Why didn't they fight it?
They never said we screwed up.
What did
they just paid the money.
So just flat out protection money.
Yeah, it was a shakedown.
I tend to think all news programs, or should I say all programs, edit their guests to make them look their best, to minimize the hemming and the hawing, the ums and the ahs, to more or less get to the point. Sometimes this makes them look better than they actually are, or worse, whether that's the intention or not. So what do you do about it?
I bet you've interviewed someone for an hour and used a sentence or not even a sentence.
100%.
And then you take out the uhs and ahs.
But if
so
I interviewed
should they be able to demand that you put out the whole thing every time as a matter of course?
Not every time.
Yes.
But are
So
there
which times?
exceptions? When the presidential candidate, the vice president of the United States, does her biggest interview, it's 45 minutes, and you air 21 minutes of it.
Yeah.
I don't think there is any downside to the transparency that the media organizations demand.
The downside is you let Donald Trump dictate your news agenda. It's not
so
Donald
do it for
Trump's
Dan
air.
Abrams. Do it because Dan Abrams is asking for it.
They could do that if they wanted to. They don't want to be bullied by Donald Trump. They don't want to give any credence to Donald Trump calling this the greatest deception in the history of broadcast.
While the talking heads were busy bloviating on where the line should be drawn, President Trump made a decision to sue Paramount, the owners of CBS and 60 Minutes.
Former President Donald Trump is suing CBS News for $10 billion over what he is claiming was deceitful doctoring of an interview with Harris. Now, Fox News Digital obtained the affidavit exclusively today, and I have it right here to read to you. I did want to read you a part of this. I'm also just going to pull up some of this quote here. As you can see, it says, "This action concerns CBS's partisan and unlawful acts of election and voter interference through malicious, deceptive, and substantial news distortion calculated to confuse, deceive, and mislead the public, and attempt to tip the scales in favor of the Democratic Party."
There was some disagreement on this action.
Well, the bottom line is independent legal experts say that the White House, the president, really did not have a case here. And many people have reinforced that argument.
Adam Schiff, the junior senator from California, whose main dog in this fight is that he was a guest on Colbert's show on the night in which Colbert announced his cancellation, summed it up thusly.
Any First Amendment lawyer, and frankly, most non-First Amendment lawyers can tell you that lawsuit was frivolous. It was completely baseless and frivolous. And in fact, you don't have to take it from the scholars. CBS itself said that the litigation was absolutely baseless. Now, why was it baseless? Because CBS has a right to edit their interviews of someone the way they choose, and some disgruntled other candidate can't complain about an editorial decision made with respect to someone else's interview. So there was no basis for this litigation.
Whether or not CBS could have won the lawsuit against President Trump would seem to be irrelevant, because they didn't even try.
Paramount board chair and controlling shareholder Sherry Redstone reportedly sought the settlement to ensure the FCC approves Paramount's $8.4 billion bid to merge with Skydance Media.
So Sherry Redstone sought to settle the lawsuit. At stake, an $8 billion merger between Skydance Media and Redstone's Paramount Global, which needs FCC approval.
Well, let's not forget, for people who have not been breathlessly following this, that this is about Sherry Redstone, who needs Trump administration approval to have this sale to Skydance go through and make a lot of money. In my view, really tarnishing the network of Murrow and Cronkite.
I would argue that, yes, these recent moves with CBS News and 60 Minutes and other things, they are not, I mean, this is an owner, a controlling shareholder who has to have a deal go through. She is on the verge of financial ruin, I believe, if it doesn't happen. She's in a really hot spot. This company, Paramount, is not doing as great as it once was 20, 30 years ago. And they need a deal, it's a transformative deal, and it would keep her family fortune as well as a company in business. So she's rocking a hard place.
Which is when Stephen Colbert came in with his now famous soundbite.
Now, I believe this kind of complicated financial settlement with a sitting government official has a technical name in legal circles. It's big fat bribe.
For once, conservatives in the media agreed with Colbert.
Paramount Global, right? Then they have a merger that they want to get through in front of the federal government, might have led to this settlement.
In order for Paramount CBS to sell to Skydance, all right, they got to get FCC approval. And if Trump says to Brendan Carr, the head of the FCC, hey, you're not approving it, he's not approving a deal.
I don't get it. Why are they confessing?
They're not confessing.
They're bragging.
Also worth noting, the settlement may balloon beyond the originally reported $16 million.
Paramount Global and CBS have agreed today to pay President Donald Trump a sum that could reach north of $30 million to settle the president's election interference lawsuit against the network. President Trump will receive $16 million up front. This will cover legal fees, cost of the case, and contributions to his library or charitable causes to be determined at Trump's discretion.
But according to FCC Chairman Brendan Carr, the merger had nothing to do with the CBS lawsuit, saying, "We are staying in our lane."
Your FCC very quickly approved this. This all went down in July, and it is giving ammunition to those who believe the skids were greased, that the settlement, the $16 million settlement by Paramount of President Trump's lawsuit was part of an orchestrated arrangement. How do you respond?
Well, there's a lot of misinformation out there. The reality is our review here followed our very standard practice at the FCC. In fact, the timing was right in the wheelhouse of when we ordinarily approve these types of transactions, or at least reach a final decision, both at this administration and the last administration as well. So we ran normal course. We had a full commission vote.
Not only was the CBS lawsuit settled and the Skydance merger approved, but Paramount Global also agreed to one more condition.
What Skydance agreed to do is to conduct a review of CBS's content and appoint an ombudsman to handle claims of bias. To which the FCC chairman said Americans no longer trust the legacy national news media to report fully, accurately, and fairly.
Carr's co-commissioner at the FCC, Ana Gomez, did not agree with the decision.
The only Democratic member of the FCC, as you know, Ana Gomez, filed a dissent, and she said that this was a case of never-before-seen controls over newsroom decisions and editorial content that she says violate the First Amendment. Want to respond to that?
There's plenty of precedent for what we did. In fact, the bias, the ombudsman that CBS has agreed to put in place that can help address bias issues. That's something that a Democrat FCC put in place previously for Comcast, was a ombudsman. Similarly, with respect to DEI, ending invidious forms of DEI, the past FCC, the Biden FCC, actually required companies as conditions of mergers to expand DEI. So there's plenty of precedent there. And again, we're just trying to make sure that folks fulfill their public interest obligations.
But Gomez was not having it.
Well, let me just start by saying I think it's rich for this administration to talk about the distrust in media when it has spent the last 10 years sowing distrust in media, largely, again, because they are unhappy with the way that media reports about it. It is unprecedented. The Constitution prohibits the government from interfering in free speech and with the freedom of the press. The Communications Act, which is our authorizing statute, prohibits the FCC from censoring broadcasters. Imposing content restrictions, even as part of a transaction, is a violation of the First Amendment, and it is unprecedented. When the commission took action once before on an ombudsman, it did so in the context of having an ombudsman that would ensure that there was a separation between the corporate owners of a broadcaster and the news division. That is very different than imposing content-based conditions on what they call alleged bias, which to me translates to things we don't like.
This just in, the Crisis Center has just learned that the name of the new CBS ombudsman is Kenneth Weinstein, former head of the Hudson Institute.
Here's where it gets messy. They gave the job to Kenneth R. Weinstein. Now, Weinstein isn't just some neutral watchdog. He ran the Hudson Institute, a conservative think tank, and was Donald Trump's ambassador to Japan in his first term. He also donated tens of thousands of dollars to Republican and pro-Trump groups. Does that sound like someone who's going to come in unbiased and rebuild public trust? Or does it sound like hiring a referee who already told one team that he's rooting for them?
I'm sure he'll stay in his lane.
Weinstein's track record tells us exactly what kind of bias he'll be hunting for. He's a vocal defender of Israel, a critic of the Biden administration, and someone who compared the White House, when Biden was there, to the bumbling cast of Veep, that HBO show. That doesn't make him a villain. I mean, he's entitled to his opinions, but it makes him a questionable choice for a role that demands neutrality.
The new conditions placed upon CBS had a noticeable effect on morale in the company.
In April, 60 Minutes' longtime executive producer Bill Owens resigned amidst disagreements over how to respond to the lawsuit, saying he'd lost the independence that honest journalism requires, unquote. In May, CBS News president, CEO Wendy McMahon, announced she would also step down, saying in a parting memo, "The company and I do not agree on the path forward," unquote.
It was July 14th when Colbert called the settlement a big fat bribe. And then, 3 days later, this happened.
Before we start the show, I want to let you know something that I found out just last night. Next year will be our last season. The network will be ending The Late Show in May. And yeah, I share your feelings.
How did the media respond?
CBS just canceled the Late Night with Stephen Colbert, just days after Colbert took a swing at his own network for settling with Trump.
CBS and Paramount insist the cancellation was financially motivated, but many are, of course, skeptical.
Stephen Colbert getting the boot after his bosses did some basic math. Quote, The Late Show was losing CBS $40 to $50 million a year, with a budget of more than $100 million per season.
Over the weekend, somebody at CBS followed up their gracious press release with a gracious anonymous leak saying they pulled the plug on our show because of losses pegged between $40 million and $50 million a year. 40 million's a big number. I could see us losing $24 million, but where would Paramount have possibly spent the other $16 million? Oh, yeah.
And now the Writers Guild of America wants an investigation into the cancellation. Somehow that killing a bad show is criminal. They should be investigating Paramount. That's a publicly traded company that has a responsibility to make money. Why did they keep a show on the air that consistently lost tens of millions of dollars? That's the question.
And it's a good question, Greg. Why would a network continue losing money on a show rather than making money? Jimmy Kimmel blasted the report saying, the idea that Stephen Colbert's show was losing $40 million a year is beyond nonsensical. These alleged insiders who supposedly analyzed the budgets of the shows, they seem to only be focused on advertising revenue and have completely forgotten about affiliate fees, which number in the hundreds of millions, probably in total billions. And you must allocate a certain percentage of those fees to late night shows. Affiliate fees or carriage fees or retransmission fees are paid by the cable satellite streaming platform to the content creator, in this case CBS, for the right to run their programming. So CBS wouldn't have to rely on ad revenue alone. However, the Five's Katie Pavlich had a different idea.
They kept his show for so long and they're keeping it for another 6 months rather than saying it's over today because of his politics, not because he was liberal, because he was pushing a narrative that they liked, because he was using his platform to benefit the Democratic Party.
She certainly has a higher opinion of Hollywood executives than I do if she thinks they're willing to lose money to advance a moral message.
The problem for all of these guys is that they turned late night comedy into a liberal sermon, and nobody wants that.
So, which one was it? Was he fired for being a liberal? Or was he only kept on the air so long because he was a liberal?
The network is blaming financial concerns, but let's be honest, they finally realized that America does not need a sanctimonious clown with Trump derangement syndrome 5 nights a week.
So, fired for being a liberal.
Who cares if it costs a lot and it sucks? It made them feel good to know it was there. But don't you dare touch it, because that's fascism.
So, only had a job because he was a liberal. I'm wondering what David Letterman, the predecessor to Colbert, and the owner of Worldwide Pants, the production company behind Colbert's Late Show, has to say about this.
60 Minutes decided they didn't care about freedom of the press, so they paid off the current administration multiple millions of dollars just to let us continue to do business. We're so sorry. Here's a couple of $1 million, but we still want to be in business. So the new guys, the Ellison twins, they don't want to have to do that. So they say to the CBS people, geez, you don't. And what about that kid, Stephen Colbert? He's always shooting his mouth off about the administration. We don't want any trouble from that guy. So the CBS people say, hey, boys, here's what I'm going to do. Not only are we going to get rid of that guy, we're going to get rid of the entire franchise so you don't have to worry about another guy. It's gone, buddy.
There are voices on both sides that think Colbert was fired for his politics. But let's consider the possibility that the decision was financial.
You can't just dismiss that the show is losing $40 million a year.
It's
the highest rated, but that doesn't equate to dollars.
Pete, that's not a good argument. It means it used to make more money. It's making less money. Doesn't mean you kill it.
Well, when you have a balance sheet, it does matter.
All of TV
it also matters that late night TV has been decimated.
Right.
Some would argue that if his show was highly rated, yet losing money, why wouldn't they try to cut costs before canceling the show?
Listen, Stephen, your show is losing X amount of money a year. There's two things we could do. We could cut the budget in half, maybe move out of the Ed Sullivan Theater, do the show in a small studio that we already own because CBS has a lot of studio space.
Cut down on staff.
You have 200 people working here. We need it to be 100 people or 60.
So you're saying there's steps
we're
they could have taken.
Instead of you doing your show 5 days a week, we're going to do your show 4 days a week, and you're going to pre-tape your Thursday show.
Yeah.
So you're actually going to be in production 3 days a week. Like, that's a way right there to cut the budget at least in half.
You don't jump straight to canceling.
This actually reminds me of another story from a few years back.
Even though the Tim Allen Show Last Man Standing was the network's second highest rated comedy, ABC decided to drop the sitcom after 6 seasons. Why would they end one of their most successful shows without warning?
ABC, it basically says they can't afford the cost of the cast. What do you say to that?
Well, it's hard for me to buy that because they just gave raises to all 6 of the cast members on Modern Family, which is a very gay-friendly show, the kind of show that ABC is always trying to push on their audience. And so while they give raises to all 6 of the cast members, they can't afford Tim Allen's salary. Although the show is their #2 comedy, their #3 scripted show on the entire network, anchors their Friday nights. It's done well in the ratings.
But there are more reasons why it might have been a financial decision.
The Last Man Standing aired on ABC. The network didn't actually own the show. The sitcom was produced by 20th Century Fox, which meant ABC had to pay licensing fees every season. This may have factored into the cancellation because it made the show more expensive than some of their other comedies. ABC Entertainment President Channing Dungey said that axing Last Man Standing was simply a business decision. The network decided to make Friday a night for dramas, and once the scheduling switch was made, they felt Last Man Standing had no place to go. Fridays will be all drama on ABC now. For a lot of shows, Season 7 is a year of contract negotiations. Last Man Standing was no exception. Tim Allen's contract needed to be renewed, which more than likely meant a pretty big raise. Since the show made less money for ABC because it was owned by Fox, and because Allen already had a pretty sizable salary, the network may not have wanted to pump even more money into the sitcom.
Tim Allen did ride the wave of sentiment that his show had been canceled for political reasons.
You're getting this down. I'm not kidding. You got to be real careful around here. You know, you get beat up. If you don't believe what everybody believes, this is like 30s Germany. I don't know what happened.
Then again, the same month that ABC pulled the plug on Allen's show, they announced that Trump supporter Roseanne Barr's show was being revived.
ABC pointing out how there's really no one better to comment on our modern America than Roseanne.
A lot of the television critics got very excited about this, the fact that Roseanne Connor is a Trump supporter on the show.
Well, she did vote for the president.
She voted for the president.
Yep, she did.
That's part of the dynamic with you and your family on that show.
And his being a Trump supporter didn't stop ABC from casting Allen in Toy Story 4, The Santa Clauses, or Shifting Gears. So, how we view Colbert's cancellation may depend on what happens to him next.
It's a job that I'm looking forward to doing with this usual gang of idiots for another 10 months.
Okay, but what about after that?
Netflix, call me. I'm available in June.
I want to tell Stephen, you should run for president, sir. Do it! Run, he's running.
Either that or launch a Netflix show or whatever, you know.
This is the time to rise up! Not too fast, you're old!
To summarize everything we've seen, then former President Donald Trump sued 60 Minutes for what he claimed was deceptive editing of their news program, which some would simply call editing, and which other programs like Fox and Friends have also done. Only Donald Trump didn't sue them. Rather than fight Trump's $10 billion lawsuit, Sherry Redstone, owner of Paramount Global, which in turn owns CBS and 60 Minutes, decided to settle the suit for $16 million, and favors to be determined later, which everyone seems to agree she did to get Donald Trump's blessing on her merger with Skydance Media.
Skydance!
Stephen Colbert called it a bribe.
Big fat bribe.
Which no one really seemed to be denying. And 3 days later, he was canceled. Or more correctly, it was announced that he would not be renewed again after next year.
And by the way, not just Stephen's show, CBS has canceled the entirety of the Late Show franchise. Gone!
If you want my 2 cents on the subject, I think the decision to cancel Colbert was financial. Everyone can agree that late night is no longer bringing in audiences in Johnny Carson numbers, and they can't keep spending as if they do.
Colbert might be number one, but who watches late night TV anymore?
Colbert may be ending, but he wasn't the first domino to fall. In the last several years, we've seen Conan O'Brien's TBS show scale down to a half hour and lose the band.
When our show transitions to the new half-hour format, our band will not be with us.
We've seen Late Night with Seth Meyers lose their band.
Today's very bittersweet for me.
Seth, we're always going to see each other.
We saw Lily Singh canceled and not replaced.
I just experienced one of the most notorious boys' clubs ever in late night television.
James Corden canceled and replaced with a presumably cheaper game show.
Can't you get a letter from CBS saying that you were not fired?
And when Taylor Tomlinson said she was leaving that game show,
I really wanted CBS to replace me because I just think there are so many amazing comedians who would have done a great job with this show.
The network opted not to replace her as host and just cancel the show. CBS also announced that it's not just Colbert leaving, but the entire Late Show franchise is being canceled, to be replaced with 10-year-old reruns of Byron Allen's Comics Unleashed.
Oh, you couldn't be more unleashed.
Every late night show is probably on the bubble for cancellation, unless they can figure out how to reformat for streaming. The timing of the decision, however, to cancel Colbert 3 days after he called out their bribe,
big fat bribe,
was most likely a sweetener for Trump, which also made it a financial decision. If they can choose to cancel a show just a little bit sooner than they were planning to cancel it anyways, and that makes a difference for this huge new deal they're trying to secure, well, that's just good business, isn't it? The Skydance merger was approved 1 week later.
Skydance.
I don't like it. I don't like what's going on one bit. These are crazy times.
Kimmel, the host of ABC's late night staple, Jimmy Kimmel Live, wrote on Instagram, "Love you, Stephen. You and all your Sheldons, CBS."
Obviously, I love Stephen. I love his staff. I love that show. It's incredibly sad. I'm partly excited to see what they're going to do for the next 10 months.
That's right. Everybody is talking about CBS's decision to end The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and many people are now threatening to boycott the network. Yep. CBS could lose millions of viewers plus tens of hundreds watching on Paramount+.
Former host of The Tonight Show, Jay Leno, gave his thoughts on the partisan playbook used by these late-night comics, and he argues it's what's getting them all in trouble.
And I love political humor, don't get me wrong, but I don't understand why you would alienate one particular group, or just don't do it at all.
But it's not the Jay Leno, like, I don't understand. I mean, why you want to offend your audience? Why not just do a show about, why do you have to talk about things you believe? Why do you have to make jokes about things you actually think?
So whenever I watched Colbert, which was not a lot, whatever I did, endless sneering, mocking, Trump bashing. You know what? It's just boring.
And there is nothing and no one more authentic than Stephen.
He went woke and he destroyed the entire late night industry.
It's no longer a question of just the late night industry, but what will happen to all the broadcast networks if the President of the United States can put his thumb on the scale every time he sees something he doesn't like?
President Trump is fundamentally reshaping the media landscape. And the way he's doing that is when he ran for election, he ran directly at these legacy broadcast media outlets, ABC, NBC, CBS. For years, government officials just allowed those entities with execs sitting in Hollywood and New York to dictate the political narrative. And he has fundamentally changed the game. And you see that really having consequences that are just rushing all through media.
President Trump suggested in a social media post last week that you should consider revoking the licenses of ABC and NBC because he considers them too partisan, in his words, too Democrat. Is that something that you're considering?
And this idea that broadcasters are this sort of gatekeeper and they have to be trusted by everybody, that used to be the way that people viewed it, but it's different now. I think it's a good thing that people have choice. And of course, on the broadcast side, if you have a license by the FCC, if you're not complying with your public interest obligations, then license revocation is always a penalty that's possible.
When President Trump made similar threats during his first term, the then FCC chairman, Ajit Pai, said, "I believe in the First Amendment, and under the law, the FCC does not have the authority to revoke a license of a broadcast station based on the content of a particular newscast." What's changed?
Well, that was a statement by Chairman Pai, not a statement by me.
It's not about Stephen Colbert, who is wonderful.
Right.
You know, no one's precious, right? We could all be fired at any moment. It's about the bigger picture. It's about Donald Trump going out and saying, I've been beating the media, AKA the First Amendment. I've been beating them. He can say that credibly to his audience because CBS and ABC capitulated and paid him tribute. And we'll see who else continues to do that.
Who's not paying tribute? The creators of South Park, for one. They just signed a $1.5 billion deal, coincidentally, with Paramount Global. Their first episode after the signing was critical of President Trump and their new partner, Paramount.
Oh God. The small town of South Park, Colorado is protesting against the president. Hundreds of South Park faithful are flocking to the area where Jesus Christ continues to speak his words of wisdom.
If someone has the power of the presidency and also has the power to sue and take bribes, then he can do anything to anyone. You really want to end up like Colbert? You guys gotta stop being stupid.
Okay, we settled.
Oh, we settled, thank God.
I got the president down to $3.5 million.
$3.5 million, that's not so bad. That's really fair. I think that's fair.
We'll just have to cut some funding for our schools and hospitals and roads, and that should be that.
Yeah, well, that's not quite all. As part of the settlement, we also had to agree to doing pro-Trump messaging.
Trump. His penis is teeny tiny, but his love for us is large.
Guys, did you anticipate the reaction today? Have you been following it? What do you make of it?
We're terribly sorry.
They're like, okay, but we're gonna blur the penis. And I'm like, no, you're not gonna blur the penis.
Today, a White House spokesperson issued a statement saying in part, quote, South Park hasn't been relevant for more than 20 years.
What if I told you South Park just landed a streaming deal worth $1.5 billion? Sounds insane, right?
It went on to say the fourth-rate show is hanging on by a thread by uninspired ideas in an attempt for attention.
For people, they're saying, how could they be so mean to Donald Trump? And they are vicious. You haven't watched South Park. It just shows that this is a losing battle. Like, this really, by the FCC, by everybody else, this is a losing battle. And for Paramount, you know, they get rid of Colbert. They have this bogus agreement on 60 Minutes. And so you pay Matt Parker and Trey Stone $1.5 billion with a B, and this is the first episode they give you. It's playing whack-a-mole, and politicians will always lose that game.
Whatever the future is for late night television will be the future, regardless of what happens to Colbert. Colbert is just the latest casualty, and he may not be the last domino to fall.
Fallon has no talent. Kimmel has no talent. They're next. They're going to be going. I hear they're going to be going. I don't know, but I would imagine because they get, you know, Colbert has better ratings than Kimmel or Fallon. You know that.
Yeah, no, I don't feel under attack, really. I mean, I think there's a response to every attack, and people love to laugh, and that's never going to change, and there's nothing anybody is ever going to be able to do about that.
Trump also said he believes that he has a chance at organizing a trilateral meeting with Putin and Zelensky. The last time Trump had a trilateral meeting was on Epstein Island.
So here's the point. If you're trying to figure out why Stephen's show is ending, I don't think the answer can be found in some smoking gun email or phone call from Trump to CBS executives or in CBS's QuickBooks spreadsheets on the financial health of late night. I think the answer is in the fear and pre-compliance that is gripping all of America's institutions at this very moment. Institutions that have chosen not to fight the vengeful and vindictive actions of our pubic hair doodling commander-in-chief. This is not the moment to give in. I'm not giving in. I'm not going anywhere. I think.
It's great to be with all of you tonight, and I just want to take a minute to, again, thank everybody for the outpouring of support these last few days. As I said before, I've gotten more texts and emails that I can possibly count. And if I haven't responded to yours yet, it's only because I don't like you, okay? And this is how you're finding out, okay? A lot of people out there are bummed about the show ending, which is understandable, and thanks for that. But some people see the show going away as a sign of something truly dire. And while I am a big fan of me, I don't necessarily agree with that statement, because we here at The Late Show never saw our job as changing anything other than how you felt at the end of the day, which I think is a worthy goal. Or rather, changing how you felt the next morning when you watched on your phone, which is why broadcast TV is dying. You're part of the problem. Look in the mirror, okay? Which is probably the camera on your phone. Come on. Obviously, guys, this is out of my hands. And I want to thank you so much for being here, on my last show.
Stephen, you're here for 10 more months.
Oh, right.
For the Late Night Saga, this is E-Rock. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
They made one mistake. They left me alive.
And the Emmy goes to The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
God bless America. Stay strong, be brave, and if the elevator tries to bring you down, go crazy and punch a higher floor. Woo!